And look at how this bill was written. Can you say it was done openly? With transparency and accountability? Without backroom deals and struck behind closed doors? Hidden from the people? Hell no, you can't! Have you read the bill? Have you read the reconciliation bill? Have you read the manager's amendment? Hell no, you haven't!
Out from the GOP on the new health care law, and these are fighting words directed at the White House. According to the latest projections from the ranking Republican on the Senate Budget Committee, look at this. They say there will be a deficit increase of $618 billion over the next 10 years, with a deficit increase of $1.8 trillion over the second 10 years. House Minority Leader John Boehner joins me live to discuss this. Okay, so thank you so much for being here, Mr. Minority Leader. Those numbers are pretty shocking when it talks about the red ink we're about to, as John Stossel put it earlier, foist off on our children. You know, the Democrats say that's just not right. All along they've told us that this is going to be a cost-saving measure. So how do you get to these huge deficit numbers?
Well, you know, the Congressional Budget Office can only score what they're given and in the way it's given to them. And what's becoming clearer every day are the gimmicks that were used in order to show that this was actually going to save money. When you start double counting the $500 billion in Medicare cuts, you start double counting some of the money that's going into the long-term care program that is supposed to be there to pay benefits 20 years from now, except we're going to spend it today on a new entitlement program. And so it's been clear to many of us that this is a budget-busting health care bill that I think is going to bankrupt our country.
All right, but you know that's such an extraordinary statement. It is going to bankrupt our country. Walk me through that, because you, the Republicans, say the money's not there to pay for this thing, and nonetheless, the entitlements are coming. We are doing this. It's a law now. So where is the money going to come from?
Well, it's either come from the backs of our kids and grandkids, like 43 cents of every dollar that we're spending this year, or it's going to come from increased taxes on small businesses in America at a time when, you know, we're asking them to create jobs because the American people are asking us, where are the jobs?
You know,
and so it's not going to come out of thin air. Tax cut.
What could happen now? You know, because there was talk yesterday about the possibility that the Democrats would have to implement a national sales tax to pay for this, that perhaps they would just raise other taxes on the middle class to pay for this, or there was also talk about perhaps if the Republicans retake the majority in 2010 of the Republicans just refusing to fund this. I mean, what realistically is going to happen over the next 8 to 10 months?
Well, I think that we need to repeal this bill and replace it with common sense reforms that'll bring down the cost of health insurance. But with a Democrat president for the next 2.5 years, even if we gained the majority, it's going to be very difficult to repeal this bill outright. But things like if I were the Speaker of the House and we were in the majority, I'd have a bill on the floor that would eliminate the $500 billion worth of Medicare cuts. I would have a bill on the floor that takes away this individual mandate and the employer mandate and the tax increases. In addition to that, you're just going to take appropriated funds to actually come through the process to fund the hiring of new employees, to create these new bureaucracies. I can't imagine that a Republican Congress is going to give this president the money to begin this process.
Now, I want to ask you, sir, because there's been a lot of news out there about the climate on Capitol Hill, and some of the Tea Party members were accused of misbehaving when we saw the bill being voted on, and even some members on the House floor were accused of misbehaving. We heard one yell out, "It's a baby killer," about the bill and so on. You had some thoughts on the climate and the hostilities on Capitol Hill.
Well, there are a lot of angry Americans, and they're angry over this health care bill. They're angry about the fact that the Democrats here in Washington aren't listening to them. The American people are appalled by what they've seen in this health care debate, but the worst is still ahead. The bill's already failed. The American people don't want it, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs, stop! But yet, Congress continues to proceed. They want jobs, the American people do. But what's this bill do? Puts the American people out of work. They want lower health care costs. While the health care bill being debated is going to raise the cost of premiums. They want less government, yet this bill is going to create a giant bureaucracy here in Washington. They want to protect life, yet the bill is going to force taxpayers to fund elective abortions. If that weren't enough, the majority plans to force the toxic Senate bill through the House under some controversial trick. There's no way to hide from this vote. It'll be the biggest vote that most members ever cast. You can run, but you can't hide. Let's defeat this bill. Of all places, where the American people are saying enough is enough. And while it was a lot about health care, it's not just health care. It's all the spending and debt that's being accumulated here. It's their national energy tax. It's their bringing their terrorists to America to put them on trial. The American people are opposed to all of these policies, and they're saying stop. Right. But understand that the left thinks that this is the best opportunity they've had in 50 years to shove through their agenda of more government answers to America's problems.
Can't afford. Now it appears that Democrats are ready to lead the middle class off the cliff again, this time on health care. We're here today to urge Americans to get engaged and to be on alert for what Congress is about to do to rush a health care bill through this Congress and into law. Clear. Washington cannot afford to repeat the same mistakes made on the stimulus, the omnibus, the budget, and the bailouts. Middle-class Americans and small businesses have too much at stake when it comes to their health care. The Democrats' emerging bill raises taxes, it rations care, and puts bureaucrats instead of doctors and patients in charge of medical decisions. It amounts to a government takeover of health care, and it would force millions of Americans off their own plans and into a government-sponsored plan.